Hello, my name is Wade Kapsakavich. I'm the mayor of the city of Toledo, and I'd like to thank everyone who is taking some time on this late afternoon to join us for the Toledo Unemployment Roundtable. This is the first conversation we've had like this in Toledo, perhaps, but this is one of what has already been several similar conversations around the state of Ohio in communities that have been affected, and I would argue negatively affected by some of the poor decisions that the governor and the majority in the state legislature have made in recent days and weeks surrounding unemployment. Unemployment has actually been in the news quite a bit in the last several weeks, and the debate, unfortunately, shows just how out of touch too many of our Columbus politicians are when it comes to this question. The problem isn't that unemployment is serving as some sort of a disincentive to work. It's literally just the opposite. Things are still bottlenecked. There are Ohioans and Toledoans that have been waiting months, literally months, for their unemployment benefits. That's because the system is overwhelmed and underfunded. Incredibly, faced with this reality, we have politicians down in Columbus who have diagnosed the problem and proposed literally the exact wrong fix at the wrong time. And we might sometimes think that, well, it's all just politics and Democrats yell at Republicans and Republicans yell at Democrats. But the reality is there are real people who are hurt and who suffer when poor policy is made. That's what's happening in Ohio right now, and that's why we felt it was important to join so many other communities in our state who have had their own unemployment roundtables, and why we want to put a focus on what's happening in Toledo here today. So I wanted to kick things off and sort of set the tone, and I believe I made my thoughts clear in my opening remarks, but I also want to let everyone know who else has joined us and who will be speaking and in roughly what order. So you can see my contact information is up on the screen now for any Toledoan who wants to reach out to me for any reason. That's the way to reach me. But also today, we're going to be hearing from Senator Teresa Fedor, who's been an absolute leader in the state Senate on this issue and so many other issues for Toledoans and Ohioans. We'll hear from Representative Lisa Sebecki, who again has been fighting an often lonely and uphill battle on behalf of working people, average run-of-the-mill Ohioans who are just looking for a fair shake and who face resistance too often in our state. Representative Sebecki has been their champion, and we'll hear from her. We're also going to hear from Zach Schiller from Policy Matters, Kalia Johnson from the Ohio Organizing Collaborative, Rebecca Steinhauser from ABLE, Barb Schwartz, who is one of those constituents, one of those citizens, one of the real faces of our broken unemployment system here in the state of Ohio. We're going to hear her experiences and have her put a face to what we're trying to fix. Erica White, who's the president of Communication Workers Local 4319 and is actually a vice president with the AFL-CIO here in Northwest Ohio. She will make remarks, and she has joined us. Caitlin Wyback then will speak, and she is another, again, face, sort of a quote-unquote real person, unlike a fake politician like perhaps myself. No, Caitlin is an example of a real person, a real Toledoan, a real Ohioan who has been wronged by an unemployment system that is overwhelmed and underfunded. She has suffered because of the bottleneck that exists and hasn't been fixed by a generally disinterested power structure in Columbus. So we want to hear from her. And then when she is done, I'll come back, make some concluding remarks, talk a little bit more about how Toledoans and Ohioans can contact their leaders to make their voices heard. And then we'll open it up to questions from the media. Spend a couple minutes doing that at the end. So that's generally our agenda and how we're going to spend our time over the next, I don't know, 45 minutes or so. Really glad to be hosting this conversation. It's important. It's important for the welfare of Toledoans. And I am proud to be standing shoulder to shoulder with the people on this call, trying to make a positive difference in their lives. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to our state senator, Teresa Fedor, who's going to give some remarks and her perspective on where we are. So, Senator.
Okay, thank you, Mayor, and thank you to all the guests who are watching us online. And we certainly want to be accessible to you. So we're looking forward to anyone getting hold of our office afterwards too. As you know, I sit on the Unemployment Modernization and Improvement Council with Representative Sebecki, and we've learned just so much about how our system really needs to be effective and how it needs to be effective. But while helping constituents who have struggled with the unemployment system or any other state agencies during this pandemic, I have found that our system has failed the people it was intended to help, and that is not the proper role of government. Government and all of its levers at every level, in every branch, exists solely to serve the people. And right now, the leadership in our state is not working for the people. There's a myth that $300 federal supplemental payment for unemployment is keeping workers out of the workforce, that workers do not want to work. And that is simply not true. The governor's decision to remove the $300 federal supplemental pay for the unemployed is a slap in the face to all Ohioans, especially when he brings in a six-figure taxpayer-funded income. In 2019, the governor made $140,989.84 in taxpayer money in a state where per capita income that year was $31,552, and 13% of Ohioans lived in poverty even before the pandemic. It is safe to say that he does not know what struggling families are going through at this time, because he lives way beyond the means of the average Ohioan. And I don't say that lightly. It's just that every single day we're getting phone calls and emails from constituents that truly need this help now. And here's some truth. I want to make it clear. No one is getting rich on unemployment. Not only do people on unemployment get a fraction of the income they made while working, we have a maximum payout in Ohio unemployment of $489 a week if you do not have dependents. So let's look at the numbers from the Ohio Unemployment Insurance Benefits Chart for 2021. On the high end of the pay scale, if your weekly income was $1,344 or more before unemployment, and you have one or two dependents, you can get a max of $604. With three or more dependents, you can get a max of $672 a week. So you add the extra $300 a week from federal supplemental. In this example, the unemployed individual would only make $970 a week. And that's $372 a week difference in what they made before being laid off. This is true for anyone in unemployment who made more than $600 before going on unemployment, because those who make $600 would only break even on the prior earnings with the federal government. And I want to highlight that you only get more per dependent if you are making more than $1,000 a week before becoming unemployed. To qualify for traditional unemployment, you must make at least $280 a week base pay, meaning you would receive $140 a week of unemployment benefits. And the $300 extra means an increase of $160 a week. Again, no one is getting rich on unemployment. And here's the reality. The truth is, we have less people in Ohio who can work now for many, many reasons. We lost workers to early retirement. Ohioans unfortunately died because of COVID. And in many cases, one parent has to stay home to provide childcare. And according to the Pew Research, in the third quarter of 2020, about 28.6 million baby boomers reported that they were out of the workforce due to retirement, early retirement. This is 3.2 million more boomers than the 25.4 million who were retired in the same quarter of 2019. Not even taking into account deaths not related to COVID-19, we lost 19,709 Ohioans due to the virus. We have 58,590 hospitalizations for COVID-19 and many people who survived but still can't work because of the long haul symptoms. You know, something you need to think about, Governor DeWine, would be to take into account all of these issues. And you recently gave a medical education virtual event on how to care for patients in post-COVID-19 recovery. And according to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, in early April, the case rate in young children and early teens began surpassing that of 65 and older. Parents can't work while they're caring for their sick children or sick child. There's also a large number of immunocompromised population that still cannot leave their homes to return to work yet. And what the governor needs to remember, the pandemic is not over just because 39% of our population is vaccinated in Ohio. We should not be going full steam ahead when people are still waiting for their unemployment benefits and a lot of other benefits. And the people need support from their government, financial or otherwise, and choosing not to take anywhere between $1 and $1.6 billion in federal monies that could stimulate our economy and help unemployed Ohioans put food on the table is short-sighted and harmful and bad policy. And I know Zach Schiller is going to talk about that. There was a recent article in the Cleveland.com paper yesterday. And bottom line, people need money if they're going to spend it in our economy. The long-term financial consequences of this pandemic are just beginning. People owe money and interest on back bills, and moratoriums on evictions and utility shutoffs are still in place. When these are lifted, there will be even more hardship ahead. I still have constituents that are waiting for unemployment benefits up to 6 months after applying. That 6 months comes with late fees, interest, repossessions. The department is not paying interest on the money they still owe and have not paid on time. They haven't even come up with the overpayment waiver that could release payment to qualifying Ohioans that have not been receiving funds because of a clerical error. The department, Governor DeWine, has directed me to tell my constituents to just keep on appealing, just keep on waiting. Well, they don't get paid while they're waiting. In addition to all this, some workers may have also lost transportation during the pandemic, limiting their ability to accept certain unemployment. These are the stories I've heard every day in my office, and they keep coming. This isn't over yet, folks. And we need that assistance and help, especially if the system has had such hard opportunities, not opportunities, but hard times trying to meet the needs of its citizens. So for those who are listening, if you're experiencing these types of hardships or need help with state agency, please reach out to my office. We'd be happy to help. And if you're a part of a union and having issues getting unemployment, even with a mass layoff number, please reach out and we can help. I'm here and I work for you. And now I'd like to pass this virtual mic over to my friend and colleague representative, Lisa Sebecki.
Thank you, Senator Fedor. And I too want to thank everyone for joining us this evening for this very important conversation. I'm State Representative Lisa Sebecki, and I represent the 45th House District, which does include Toledo. And I also want to take a personal opportunity to thank our mayor for hosting this evening with us around this very, very, very important conversation about unemployment. Many people have contacted my office and have expressed their difficulties and what they're losing out, as Senator Fedor just so eloquently outlined, what they're losing as others are still continuing to receive their monthly paycheck by taxpayer dollars. Just a little bit of background. I also serve, as Senator Fedor had said, on the Unemployment Compensation Modernization and Improvement Council. That's a really long word to say we have a broken system that needs to be modernized, and it actually should have been modernized back as far as 2004. But unfortunately, just to have that conversation in the State House, we had to wait for a 100-year pandemic. That's a shame that we should not be working for Ohioans to make sure that an insurance system isn't up and running properly for anything that it might be thrown at. I also, before I came down to the State House, I was a case support specialist for the Lucas County Jobs and Family Services. Although I did not directly help Ohioans with their unemployment benefits issues as a state representative, I have developed an understanding from my background of being a caseworker of how the process works and how it should work for every Ohioan. Throughout the pandemic, my own family and I have had issues with the unemployment system, like so many across our state. And I've helped hundreds of people with their issues. Like hundreds of Ohioans, a criminal fraudulently filed a claim in my own name, as it did Senator Fedor's. In my household, I have been seeing up close and personal how broken the unemployment system is. For example, my own son has an overpayment on his PUA claim, and this goes back to November. And even as a state legislator, I can't even get this resolved in my own household. Why? Because we have a system that's not set up for our constituents and Ohioans to be able to file a simple appeal. Also, my husband, which is also a union member, serves and works hard every day in the trades. He was unemployed during this time. But this is for the first time he faced delays and difficulties he's never, ever faced before, like long hold times and conflicting information. I've helped my constituents by going to meet them in their homes with my own devices and help them file their claims. Or constituents have come to my own house for help. My office has also helped hundreds of Ohioans so we could continue to provide assistance. This is why this conversation is so critically important. And I might also note, in our Unemployment Modernization Council, we've heard more from the private industry. It's been allowed to hear from the private industry than has been allowed to hear from the public. They've had 2 public hearings and only accepting public written testimony. Again, this week, we just got the agenda notice out. That's shameful in my eyes, because we are the people's house, and the people have the right to come to Columbus and have their voices be heard, and we be able to have a conversation as legislators to be able to ask them questions, to be able to come up with a solution. Because we've heard it before, Ohioans have a problem, Ohioans have solutions, not just private industry. And we should be hearing from every Ohioan about their problem and their solution. Unfortunately, their voices are being silenced by not being allowed to have public testimony and only written testimony. And with that, I say we work for our constituents. That's our Ohio promise in the House. That's why we are here today, to help improve the unemployment system. As you can see on your screen, this is my contact information for my office as well. Again, I've had hundreds of Ohioans in my district and across the state reach out for help. I want to thank you again to everyone who joined us, and I hope that this event that we can help shine a light on some of the struggles Ohioans are facing. And at this time, I will pass it to Zach Schiller with Policy Matters. Thank you, Zach.
Thank you, Representative Sebecki and Mayor and Senator Fedor and everyone who's put this on. I'm Zach Schiller with Policy Matters Ohio. I'm going to talk real briefly, especially about the $300 that's known as federal pandemic unemployment compensation, which Governor DeWine has announced will be cut off as of June 26th, which basically means that 327,000 unemployed Ohioans are not going to get 10 weeks of federally paid benefits if they do not find jobs in that period. What's the cost? Beyond the obvious cost to all of those families, that's about $1 billion that is not going to be coming into the Ohio economy. And so that's going to hurt businesses in Ohio. It's going to hurt the corner stores, the dry cleaners, the gas stations, every place that people spend money, because we know obviously that unemployed people spend most of the dollars that they get. So that's not going to help business in Ohio to do that. It's going to hurt Ohio's economy and our recovery. I think, as you've already heard, many workers are unable to take new jobs because of childcare availability. I just got some figures today. It showed in Southeast Ohio, 31 counties, the number of childcare centers that are operating are down 17% from what they were before the pandemic. We have tens of thousands of Ohioans who've left the labor force who haven't been able to rejoin it, either because of lack of childcare, because of health issues, or other things. And I think, you know, there have been all these academic studies that have looked at it as well, including one recently from the San Francisco Federal Reserve Bank. And they put it, I think, quite plainly, namely, are you going to reject a full-time permanent job for a few weeks of $300 of additional unemployment insurance? I mean, I think the obvious answer in most cases is no. There was a column just the other day in the New York Times on this, about this impression of labor shortages. And what the columnist wrote was, companies have an easy way to solve the problem. Pay more. That so many are complaining about the situation is not a sign that something is wrong with the American economy. It's a sign that corporate executives have grown so accustomed to a low-wage economy that many believe anything else is unnatural, end quote. We're not really in a labor shortage. We're in what you call a good job shortage. And there was a column, very good column you might want to read in Crane's Cleveland Business the other day about that. The Ohio Chamber of Commerce actually several months ago sought to slash unemployment benefits as part of a proposal to improve the solvency of the unemployment system. Interesting, because at that time there was no talk of labor shortages. They just want to cut benefits, and this is another way of doing so. Since then, Governor DeWine has said that he will use nearly $1.5 billion of the money that the state is getting from the American Rescue Plan Act to pay off the debt to the federal government and bail out the Unemployment Compensation Fund. This is money that will reduce employer taxes from what they would otherwise have had to pay in order to pay off the debt. So what's going on here? We're cutting benefits paid for by the federal government to unemployed Ohio workers while using other federal funds to bail out Ohio employers. You might say, well, why shouldn't we do that? Well, as of May 20th, there were 17 other states in the Virgin Islands that had loans from the federal government. Most did not. In other words, most states' unemployment funds did not go broke. Ours did, because we didn't adequately fund it over a period of many, many years. So what we're doing now, Governor DeWine is redistributing income using federal funds from unemployed Ohio workers to Ohio businesses. We need to oppose this decision and let Governor DeWine and our other legislators know about it. I have one other brief message, because I don't want to leave you all just down on a down note here. As both Representative Sebecki and Senator Fedor have noted, they're both members of this unwieldy named Unemployment Compensation, Modernization, and Improvement Council. And despite the name, this really could make a difference in making some recommendations to make it easier to get unemployment. And they're going to be putting out a report probably in August. Some other states have been working on this. The state of Washington just passed legislation which would call for plain language so that all unemployed people get a clear explanation of what's happening to them. that there be a training program for a pool of adjudicators in reserve when claims spike. They have a toll-free number for those with limited computer access or other kinds of limited English proficiency, and an online data dashboard that keeps track of how the agency is doing. This is all passed in Washington State. It ought to be a part of what we do here in Ohio as well. I think that we need to do a lot more in Ohio to clean up our unemployment system. And I think another person who can tell you more about that is Kalia Johnson from the Ohio Organizing Collaborative.
Thanks, Zach. Nice transition. Hi, everybody. I'm Kalia Johnson. I'm with the Ohio Organizing Collaborative, and I'm also with a little group called Unemployed Action Ohio. So I am a digital organizer in sunny Cleveland, Ohio, and I've been, for the past year, working with unemployed Ohioans across the state. How during the pandemic? Facebook, just like how we're on here over Zoom, just finding different ways of where communities have been gathering to talk about unemployment in order to bring them to a call to action of either testifying at the State House, participating in a press conference, giving press interviews, different things like that to let their voices be heard. So let me just break it down a little bit. One of the groups that I have been working with is a group focused on PUA that was created on Facebook. So that's how I've been able to bring folks into this movement. And I don't know where I would be without the Ohioans across the state who want to go back to work, who don't like being told that they're lazy when they're ready to go back and they didn't choose to have everything, the whole state shut down. And they're upset. They're ready to show up and be seen. And we actually did go to the Unemployment Improvement and Modernization Council hearing a couple of weeks ago to have our voices heard. And it was very empowering. But at the same time, we didn't know if it was enough. So having these spaces to discuss this and to hear from actual unemployed folks so that it doesn't feel like they're just being trapped in a vacuum, or that the issues that they're going through are just being thrown on a Facebook group and forgotten. This is actually making a difference of giving people a platform to be heard, since they aren't getting heard through the agency. So let me just explain a little bit some of the demands that we read at the last hearing that we attended 2 or 3 weeks ago. Let me share my screen. So like I said, have been organizing with folks for about a year. So with traditional organizing, community organizing, you're out canvassing, you're out in the streets, you're showing up in different locations to talk to folks and bring them into whatever the issue is and advocating for that. Let me see if I can get this full screen for y'all. Let me know if it doesn't show, because I know Zoom will sometimes be weird like that. Can everybody see my screen? Awesome. So that's traditional community organizing, but since COVID forced us all to stay home in order to protect each other, my job has been to find folks where they've been gathering to get answers for unemployment, and Facebook has been one of those places. So for the past year, we've been doing virtual events, in-person events, going to the State House, showing up some other places. You can check out our Facebook group. I'll throw a link in so that you could see some of the other events that we've done and actions. And what I want to show you now are the top 5 recommendations that we shared with the Unemployment Council. This is, mind you, this isn't coming from me just as an organizer. This is coming from real Ohioans who are out of work right now and who are ready to take action to bring about solutions, because they need this relief. Either they personally are being impacted, or they have loved ones who are being impacted, or all of the above. And they just know that even if they're receiving their benefits now, there's other people out there who still are waiting. So The first recommendation is, this is to the council. We demand more transparency on who is on and influencing the Unemployment Improvement Council. We recommend prioritizing the voices and lived experiences of unemployed Ohioans by filling the last 2 seats of the council with someone from legal aid and an unemployed worker. Claimants and their experiences navigating the ODJFS unemployment system should be at the forefront of this modernization and improvement process. So I know that was a mouthful. So just as clear as day, we need transparency on who is on this council. Governor DeWine was supposed to appoint 11 seats. And so far, I believe that there's 2 empty, maybe 1 empty. If there's an empty seat or not, unemployed workers need to be part of this process to improve the system so that it's not just improved for on the behalf of like big businesses or however you want to frame it. But your experiences, and I'm talking to my unemployed Ohioans out here, your experiences are pivotal to actually making this a safety net that doesn't let thousands of people fall through it, even after everyone's vaccinated. So that is one. Recommendation number 2 is we recommend utilizing ODJFS's social media accounts to broadcast information to claimants, such as basic application filing processes, timeline for documents, generalized claimant FAQ, and to accept questions in real time from users. These platforms should be staffed by several trained social media managers who can answer topical questions that people can refer to by visiting the page. This will save time and labor for both call representatives and claimants while also reaching a broader audience and allowing public transparency to the process. I know that sounds like another mouthful, but one of the great things about unemployment in general is that this is not anything new. Advocating for extended benefits or for benefits not to get cut, for welfare, all of that has been going on since well before I was born. And one of the things that is interesting now is we are forced to put a modern spin on it and bring it into the digital age. So one of the ways that we could do that is utilizing our network, our social media networks, in order to get information out there. And that's how I've been finding folks, is on Facebook. Facebook has been, there's several groups that popped up organically because folks were not able to get answers from ODJFS or from ODJFS's social media profiles. So these groups were created instead by the people, because there is a need. And what do? We come together collectively to find a solution to that need. So ODJFS should be using their social media accounts to be doing the same things that these community ran groups on Facebook are doing. It's actually not that hard. I used to do social media management. There's plenty of people. It would create jobs for people too, but there's a lot of people who know how to do it if that's intimidating. Then the third demand would be a basic one, for virtual testimony to be accepted by the council for future hearings. This is really important just because, one, some people don't have transportation. People who are working again don't have the time to take off, or they're limited hours if they are able to make money in some way or working in some type of way. People who do not have transportation available to them, who do not have childcare, they can't participate. And I personally experienced this or witnessed this from organizing folks who wanted to come to testify because they weren't getting their benefits and they had children and could not find proper childcare to then allow them to go. So you're silencing a huge group of people just by not allowing virtual testimony. And also, if we can do doctor's appointments at virtual doctor's appointments, I feel like we could do virtual testimony. I live on Zoom now. Recommendation number 4 would be to bring in a representative from SAGTech, which is the company that is doing it's creating the new IT system for ODJFS. And we would want a representative to come in and require that they have claimants, so Ohio claimants, not just a focus group from out of state, Ohio claimants review their plans, any documents, anything that is new part of the that is part of the claimant process for the new system. So claimants from Ohio should be part of the test group when they do user experience design or when testing out the new system in general. And this was thrown in by, shout out to Cindy Lang, great leader who's been doing a lot of this work, self-employed painter. She said to add a checkbox to show if ODJFS has received claimant documents. Something as basic as that would also be reassuring and allow communication between the two. And then this is number 5, even though it says number 4. We recommend that ODJFS hire and train Ohio workers for call representatives and claim adjudicators instead of out-of-state third-party contractors. Hiring unemployed Ohioans would create an opportunity for those who do not have access to their old job or who have health challenges to take on a new career path that invests in the state's economy. And especially since a lot of folks who are older and it's not as easy for them to enter into the job market as it would for somebody my age, this would allow them to have an opportunity to help bring back the economy, but also solve the issue that they just went through for the past year. So who better to fix Ohio than Ohioans who have a direct benefit from the state being improved? So those are all the demands. I'll stop sharing my screen. And the last thing I just want to bring up is there's folks, and regarding like the overpayments and the fraud issue, I have met so many people who not just the people who have come to my meetings, but their loved ones. For example, Katie Krupp, her father is on unemployment right now, and he is in his 80s, works for OSU, and he just found out this weekend that he has an overpayment of $8,000, and that has no idea where that came from, and had issues receiving his benefits several times, and does not know how to navigate like the system, especially with all the updates that are happening. So we are not only discounting the labor of like women who are often caregivers of children, also caregivers of elderly and pets, and often teachers and educators, but we're also writing off elderly who may still be working even after retirement, and who don't have the same digital know-how to navigate an updated system. So if there's going to be a new IT system, there should be some older Ohioans there to learn it, or to make sure that it is user-friendly for people of all ages and technical abilities. So with that, I'll throw it in the chat, a link to the Facebook group, Unemployed Action Ohio, posting there regularly. And that's it. If anybody has any questions, throw it in the Q&A.
Hi, my name is Rebecca Steinhauser, and I'm the managing attorney for healthcare and public benefits at Advocates for Basic Legal Equality. We're a nonprofit law firm that provides legal representation in civil matters to individuals in 32 counties, and Lucas County is one of those counties. Our central office is here in Toledo, and a great percentage of my work is focused around the Toledo area. In the past year, we've had a huge influx of unemployment cases, and I've unfortunately observed a lot of cracks in the unemployment system. I realized the system was not set up to handle these unprecedented numbers that we're seeing because of the pandemic, but it's really showed us in the past year when the system is flawed, it's the people that suffer. And the problems are plentiful. Many people have not been able to timely apply for benefits. Sometimes that's because they haven't been able to reach anybody by telephone. Other individuals we've observed have had their benefits inappropriately frozen for fraud. Some of those people had uploaded the necessary documents to document that they were indeed the person they were claiming to be, And the office would say they had never received them, and that would lead to uploading the documents again and going back and forth between the unemployment office. In addition to that, some of those people didn't have computers to upload documents. The system's not as compatible with phones as it is with laptops and computers. Then many people also had their benefits frozen due to alleged fraud because they were living with another person who was also receiving unemployment benefits, which is certainly not uncommon during this pandemic. Yet other clients were flagged for fraud because they couldn't document a permanent address due to homelessness. Other people are just waiting and waiting several months to receive decisions or to be scheduled for a hearing. Long wait times are putting people at risk for eviction, foreclosure, hunger, utility shutoffs, and loss of transportation. Another big problem is overpayments, as some of you have mentioned already. Many people are being charged with these overpayments because of mistakes made by the agency. And many of these overpayments are going undetected for several months, leading to large balances when the recipient is finally informed. Many of them I've seen are upwards of $20,000. Benefits are often immediately suspended, and the recipient is ordered to pay back the overpayment. And you can imagine how shocking and upsetting it would be to receive a letter notifying you that your benefits are going to be terminated and that you owe thousands of dollars due to no fault of your own. At ABLE, we help solve these problems, but it's sometimes difficult even for attorneys to navigate this complex and overburdened system. But I'm extremely concerned about the thousands of people that are not coming through our doors or don't have access to an attorney. You shouldn't need to have an attorney to navigate this system. We have limited resources. We can't represent everybody, and changes need to be made to the system as soon as possible to allow greater ease of access and clear up the many problems that are preventing people from timely accessing their benefits. I'd like to share with you a couple stories of clients we've represented over the past year that have been deeply harmed through this process. Matthew is a Toledo resident, and he was laid off from his job when his place of employment closed. He immediately applied for unemployment benefits, and he was denied because the office said he didn't have enough work credits to qualify. Matthew had been working steadily for several years and didn't understand why the office was telling him he didn't have enough credits. He was really in crisis without his income. And he tried for several months on his own to resolve the situation. When he didn't get anywhere, he finally contacted us at ABLE, and we represented him at a hearing where we were able to restore his benefits. He was very close to being evicted at that time. He did receive a favorable decision, and the apartment complex agreed to accept his late rent, and his eviction was averted. Sarah is a mom to 3 children, and she was previously employed as a hairstylist, and the salon closed down due to the pandemic. She was planning on returning to her job, but the owner had to continually delay reopening. She was receiving unemployment without issue until December, and at that time, her benefits were abruptly suspended due to suspected fraud. Sarah again spent months trying to clear up the issue on her own before contacting us. She sent in multiple forms of ID to prove her claim was not fraudulent and still could not get anywhere. She couldn't appeal through the hearing process because there was no decision to appeal. With legal intervention, we were able to restore Sarah's benefits, but during this time, her landlord had filed twice for evictions against her. With her reinstated unemployment benefits, we were able to prevent the loss of housing, but she came dangerously close to eviction. These are only a couple examples of the clients who are seeking out our legal assistance with their unemployment problems. Again, we've been able to resolve these problems for those people and provide that happy ending. But there are a lot of people that don't have access to our services or don't come through our doors. I'm concerned about those people. Are they going to have a happy ending or a tragic story? My observations and experiences over the past year have shown me that some significant changes really need to be made to the system in order to ensure that we have more happy endings than tragic stories. Thank you. I'd like to pass the virtual mic to unemployment constituent Barb Swartz.
Hi, can you hear me? I just want to say thank you for inviting me to this. Senator Fedor's office had called me to invite me to this. I come from it from a lot of different angles. I'm not personally on unemployment. I had a brother, a sister, and her son who were on unemployment. And my brother at the time was in a real bad place and was not tech savvy, didn't know how to manage the system. So we ended up having to help him navigate it for several weeks. We ended up having to buy him a computer of his own so that he could do it for himself. I had to teach him how to do that. We were also buying him groceries, and he was also on the verge of being evicted because he couldn't get his benefits either. So we went through a real difficult time with that. And so that eventually got straightened out for a while. And then he was one of those people that got frozen for whatever reason. And he worked through that and did just fine. So the other aspect I come from it at is I got many fraudulent claims in the mail myself, both addressed to me as an employer and also as someone trying to use my address to get benefits. So when I initially got the claim, I had no idea what was happening, how to handle that, any of it. So just by sheer coincidence, I had talked to a friend of mine whose mom is in the same nursing home as my mom. She had gotten an unemployment 1099-G form stating that she owed unemployment taxes on unemployment she never received. So when I discovered that, I also discovered that my neighbor down the street, who was an elderly 78-year-old woman, retired, she had also gotten a 1099-G and thought that that was a tax statement to pay her taxes on her stimulus money. And when she initially told me that, I tried to explain to her that you do not pay taxes on the stimulus money you receive. Well, once I got through all of these other calls with people who are getting these unemployment fraudulent claims, I put the pieces together. And I ended up helping her because she is not tech savvy. She had no idea how to handle this. And so through all of this, I have been helping individuals either navigate unemployment, such as my brother, or navigate the unemployment fraudulent claims that have come out. What I can say about that, Senator Fedor's office has been absolutely critical in helping me navigate all of this because I didn't have a clue where to go, how to start. And where I was going to the wrong website. I was going to the Ohio Means Jobs and Family Services website and couldn't find the fraud tab, navigated as best as I could. Ended up calling Senator Fedor's office again, and her aide had led me to another website, which I got on. But in the process of doing that and helping my neighbor, there were like 8 steps you had to go through to figure this out, how to navigate and file a fraudulent claim with information you didn't have to put on that website that they were asking you for, such as the person's address and phone number, which you don't get when you're listed as an employer. You just get a name and the last 4 digits of a social security number. So it was very confusing, very difficult to navigate, lots of days of phone calls, getting online, trying to figure out what to do, and also helping my neighbor and several other friends who also got fraudulent claims. A friend of mine, she owns a tea house. She is now up to 26 fraudulent claims that she has received. as someone's employer. And she said, I only have a few employers and I do not employ all of these people. So she, as of today, because I was just checking back with all of these people, she still has 2 more claims sitting on her desk that she needs to take care of and put in that they are fraudulent claims. The one gal whose mom is in the nursing home with my mom, she also had an amended 1099-G. So that was good. She's all good. My neighbor down the street, she did get a letter from the IRS stating they got her fraudulent claim, but she never got an amended 1099-G because I don't think she bothered calling the number. So that's the long and short of my story as a constituent. I personally was not on unemployment, but I sure got in the process of helping a lot of individuals who needed help with unemployment themselves or who needed help navigating all of the fraudulent claims that they had coming in. And I believe I will be introducing Erica White, President of Communications Workers of America 4319 and Vice President of Greater Northwest Ohio AFL-CIO.
Thank you, sister. I appreciate that. Thanks for that awesome introduction. I just want to share some words from Tim Berger, State President of Ohio AFL-CIO. And when you look at frontline workers, what they have put their health on the line to get us through this pandemic, he stated that I think we're going to see an opportunity where employers will understand that we need to step up and just do the average, which means giving what the other states give around us when it comes to helping move forward and correcting structural problems with unemployment. Many of those affected negatively are workers that I'm going to share from the University of Toledo who cleaned the areas and the grounds during COVID. These workers took care of everyone both on campus that came to campus, including the students. So I'm going to start with the story of Christy Schuster. Much of what I had to do as a union president, not understanding anything about unemployment except the system overall, was how to help those who were being affected that were my members, including trying to fill in those gaps as they tried to take care of their families through a difficult time. This is what Christy shared with me. She sent me an email, and she was permanently laid off in June from the University of Toledo, and she was waiting to receive her unemployment. She was out 9 weeks pending to have her unemployment taken care of from the University of Toledo. Of course, both State Representative Sobecki and Senator Fedor have helped with many of these problems. But what she shared with me is she had talked to unemployment numerous of times, and they had said that she was doing everything she needed to do. They were just waiting on the processing department. 9 weeks, y'all. 9 weeks she waited. She spoke with a coworker who got laid off at the same time that she did, and that coworker got paid 2 days ago, so over 9 days. She said her last day was June 30th of last year, and she filed on July 1st. And she still, even though she called in and checked on confirmations and filed every week, it took her over 12 weeks, I'm pretty sure, to get her money, as I'm recalling. We had another member there, Connie Butler, who was temporarily laid off. There were temporary layoffs within the University of Toledo. And we had a very difficult time dealing again, both through the employer and the unemployment system. And when she filed for unemployment insurance with the Ohio Department of Job and Family Service, she was told she would not receive any reimbursement benefit because of the days of the week. Many of the workers there, and I'm sure many of you will recall that not everybody works Monday through Friday, 9 to 5 or 7 to 3. Many of the workers at the University of Toledo that take care of the campus work Tuesday through Saturday, or maybe they work a third shift, so their first day is that Monday evening. So when you're trying to apply for unemployment through the Ohio Department of Job and Family Services, there can be issues when you're only able to apply online and cannot get anyone on the phone to help with these different variances. So she was told she made too much money because she worked, some of her days fell in 1 week and some fell in the other. So she was in a process of appealing. It was a very hard appeal process, and it took us months to get through that. And Jada Pierce, a single mother who owed over $5,000 to unemployment due to the fact she could not get a written letter from the employer stating that her hours had been reduced. So the employer, University of Toledo, continued to say that she was employed, which she was, but her hours had been reduced. And she did not have an opportunity to speak with anyone, and this caused a substantial disparity to her and her family. Again, I'd like to thank Senator Fedor and State Rep Sabecki for helping with many of these problems. That is just one side of it. Also, I would like to share from UAW President Tony Toddy from UAW Local 14 is talking about the mass unemployment numbers. And I know that both offices, again, have helped with that. So we're having a lot of issues where we are not trained to help people with unemployment, where many times people are going weeks without any money, any way to take care of their families. And that is just one side of it. So we're hoping to bring back those. Look, these are skilled laborers. People have already did this job that have retired. This is time to bring back people and ask them to come back and fill in where there's a void because of vacations or people through attrition, even offering people to stay, as we know that there's a drop program and such for the fire department where we keep people employed while we're going through this pandemic. As Senator Fedor has shared, we're not at the end of this. So we really have to be proactive. We have a trained workforce that is still there, that are retired, that can come back and help fill these gaps. I also want to share about Shared Work Ohio. Shared Work Ohio was another employee I worked with, and that's the Toledo Lucas County Library, where we worked hard not to have people laid off. And so you started ahead, you had to put in the application process. The administration was very difficult. People lost their PIN numbers. Our suggestion was that as a way to reset PINs quicker would be a lot easier for many people. And I'm sure this is not just through Share Work Ohio. If you have a problem with your PIN not working, it takes so much to get back through to try to reset your PIN. More proactive communication to employers on what is going on with employees. That's one of the biggest issues. So we can guide them through denials and application issues. And that includes unions, where we're trying to help guide people through the system. Many times employers were unable, with Share Work Ohio, which was the Toledo Lucas County Library, were unable to work directly with the ODJFS to resolve issues in many circumstances. So employee then had to be personally responsible to contact Shared Work Ohio, where in fact the employer, along with union negotiations, set that up. Employees were often told that everything was okay and their claim was being processed. I know Barb shared that before, when in fact there was a hold on their account. Well, as a union rep or the employer who I'm calling and getting on the phone and roughing up a little bit, right? Well, we can't see any of this information. And so you have the employee depending on the employer and their union rep. If you don't have a union rep, I know that this was beyond, I can only imagine how hard that was not to have an extra advocate for your voice while this was going on. It was awkward to establish percentages and reductions of hours for employees who have full-time status. So at the library and many public sector workers, they may not work a 40-hour week as private sector does, so 3.75 hours per week. Employers were not told what to do with these fractional hours, right? So who did that affect? It affect people applying for the unemployment, and again, getting through the systems, PINs not working, very difficult. And most payrolls are bi-weekly, correct? But hours need to be reported weekly with the Shared Work Ohio program. And I don't know how many people have taken advantage that are aware of that. We had no idea how to set up Shared Work Ohio plan to account for bi-weekly pay, right? Like most of us get paid, so you're probably nodding like that's me too. This was the funniest. We had some staff that were inadvertently switched by ODJF reps to receiving benefits every other week instead of on a weekly basis. So there are a lot of issues going on, even when the employer is trying to work through them with Share Work Ohio, or where the employer is just off-standing, and the employee then, or I would say union member, has to reach out to their union rep to try to help. And I am thankful for our state rep Sabecki and Senator there and filling in those gaps, because it was very disheartening. And it's very hard to take those calls from people you know that could not feed their families at that time, or they couldn't apply for food stamps, or they couldn't get their checks in the mail. This was something that I didn't just hear about from one person. I dealt with at least 50 people, and those were the ones that contacted me. So while legislation has fallen short in accomplishing reform of Ohio's unemployment compensation through bills that we've had bills proposed multiple times over a decade, it is time to have this system fixed. And one of the things that we would also, as Ohio businesses are currently paying into an employment-based system, only on the first 9,000 of an employee's taxable wages. That is something that has to change. Look, we've got to make things equitable. We do have a system. We got to make sure that system works for the people, by the people. We do not need ODJF privatized. We need to have it reformed to work. And all of us being here and having a voice right here on this platform are saying the same thing. We have a system for the people. We need to make sure that it's run by the people and is effective for the people. And with that, I would love to introduce Caitlin, and I'm sorry if I mess up your last name, but Miss Caitlin Wybeck, who is a constituent, why can't I say that word today? Who's a fellow sister, I'll say that, who had unemployment issues, and I think you will really enjoy her personal story. Thank you.
Thank you, Erica. As you said, my name is Caitlin Wiebeck. I'm a stagehand with Local 24 in Toledo, Ohio. I'm a live events worker. I'm a gig worker. And I just want to start by sharing my story with unemployment. I was denied regular unemployment by like a small amount because I didn't make the $280 per week. It was like I made $250 a week or something like that. So I had to apply for the PUA. I applied for the PUA, and when I did that, I sent in my W-2s and all my information about the wages and all of that, and I was approved for $22,000 total when I sent all that information in. So then I was collecting the PUA, and I collected it until about October, and then they told me that I was overpaid by $11,000. I've never collected unemployment before, so at the time, I just assumed that that's how that worked. You know, you send in your W-2, they're going to tell you what you get paid. So after they told me I had the overpayment, they cut my payments down to $80 a week to repay this overpayment, which was no fault of my own. Okay, so then I'm collecting the $80 per week. We go through Christmas, we go through the election. And then the PUA system underwent a bunch of these updates. And so then I didn't get paid for 2 months after that. And then when all of that was said and done, somehow my payment went back up to $500 a week. And I think that's because of the extra $300, but then they weren't taking the 50% out for the overpayment for whatever reason. And they did that for 2 months. Then all of a sudden now they're taking out that 50%. So right now my payment is $343, but when they cut that $300, I'll only be getting $43 a week. I can't go and get a different job right now because my son is home. He's autistic. I had him 3 months early. I had preeclampsia, so he's high risk. So he was home with me doing online school. So it really wasn't possible for me to go and look for a different job. I'd like to add that the entertainment industry is not fully operational yet. We are slowly coming back. So it's not that I don't want to go back to work. I am just waiting to go back to work. And I think it would be beneficial to the people to keep this $300 bonus instead of cutting it, because I feel like we're punishing everyone because of the few people that didn't do what they were supposed to do. And that's not fair. And I've never collected unemployment. And, you know, growing up as a kid and a teenager, you hear about adults having these issues and you assume that it's people that didn't do what they were supposed to do. They're they're scamming. So I never thought that I was going to have to deal with something like this. And I've seen no rhyme or reason as to how they are determining all of this unemployment. It just makes no sense. It's contradictory. So I'm just disappointed in our government right now. And then the other thing too that I wanted to mention, we can give $5 million away in a lottery to people who are getting vaccinated, but we can't extend unemployment for another couple months. It seems a little ridiculous to me. And I think that's it. I think that's all I have. So thank you very much for this opportunity. And thank you, Lisa, for involving me. I appreciate it.
All right, and I want to thank you, Caitlin, and everyone who was a part of this conversation. And I think we all heard a lot from a number of different perspectives, not just the pain that our broken unemployment system can cause, but, you know, from Kalia and Zach, I think we heard some constructive policy solutions that we all should embrace, and we hope that the governor and legislature embrace. What I want to do before we open it to questions is just provide additional resources to people who may be struggling under our current system and just want to be able to reach out and get help. Obviously, you've already had the contact information for my office, Senator Fedor's office, Representative Sebecki's office. On the screen now are additional resources, whether it's the HEAP program, whether it's ABLE, United Way of Greater Toledo, Policy Matters Ohio. They're up on the screen. And again, this is all being recorded, so people will be able to go back and access this information if they're interested. You see phone numbers, websites. Please take advantage of any of these resources if you think it could be helpful. The Toledo-Lucas County has a rental assistance program that actually we here in the city of Toledo have a hand in implementing and managing. Summer crisis program, again, website there, and the PIP program, which helps eligible Ohioans manage energy bills. Again, there's a website that people can access. They think that could be helpful to them. Just a general overview about how you can contact your state legislators is contained in this slide. There's a map where you can find your House district and another map where you can find your Senate district. I would perhaps sarcastically point out that those districts are the most gerrymandered districts that the politicians could come up with, and enjoy them now because they're likely to get worse. But that won't be because folks like Senator Fedor and Representative Sebecki won't be fighting that. They're going to try their best. I just worry that the cartographers outnumber us. And part of the reason our state government is so horribly broken for people like Caitlin and for people like the family members Barb described is because those districts don't exactly conform to anything remotely resembling reality, but that's perhaps a Zoom for another day. And then finally, what we heard today were personal stories about personal information being stolen, including by both of our state elected officials who are on this Zoom. So the final slide here is an indication of resources that you can dial up, call, find on the web if you find yourself in that situation. So that brings us to the conclusion really of the scheduled portion of our conversation today. If there are, we ran maybe a little bit over time. I think I said earlier that it would be somewhere between 45 minutes and an hour. As it turns out, it was somewhere between an hour and 75 minutes, but it was a great, I just thought it was a great exchange of information. And now we're throwing it open to questions, any questions that any citizen may have or any member of the media may have. I will act as something of a moderator here, and I will, were we to get questions, I will sort of read them into the record, as it were, and direct them to whomever is being asked a question. And I think as of now, there aren't any questions. I'm not a member of the U.S. Senate, but this is me doing a little bit of a filibuster, trying to wait to see if there are questions that may be arriving from our friends either in the media or just anyone who's watching and participating. Again, so far does not look as though that is the case. No, there aren't. There aren't as of now, and I've filibustered just about as well as anyone could. Does anyone have any final remarks? Any one of our panelists, anyone? Rebecca, Erica, Representative Sebecki, Senator Fedor, I know we've already kind of gone through it, but in the absence of any questions, I think we've come to the end of the program. So before I wrap things up and thank everyone for their time, I guess I just sort of look at the panel and can you wave or signal if anyone wants to say anything, anything like a concluding remark? Otherwise, we'll bring it to a close. I see Senator Fedor has raised her hand. So Let me
And
turn
I
it
know-
over to her, and maybe this will give time for a question to come in. Who knows?
Thank you. You know, Rep. Becky and I talk constantly, week to week, and share the constituency calls that we're getting, and it seems more entangled now more than ever in trying to get the services that are available to people they qualify for, but how do they access them? And we're also really concerned about the fact that this council does not want to have in-person public testimony. And it's very frustrating because as you've heard in this Facebook Live event, it's very specific to those families, to their job, to their family situation, the age, any children or family members that are vulnerable. So it isn't as cut and dry as the leaders would like it to be. And we're very frustrated as representatives that the leaders of this council will not open up public testimony. We're hearing from the department and how much they're improving. And yes, they probably are, but it's not to the point where we can access people who still are waiting months and months for their qualified benefit. So I think we need to send a strong statement to the leaders of this council that they must open up public testimony. People want to be heard. We don't want a glossed over story from the department. That's all well and good. We hear from some business people, but we don't even have the representation from Ohioans who are trying to seriously have their voice be heard on how to fix this, because they're losing their homes, their cars. They don't see a way out of this. And it seems as though our leaders want to be full steam ahead with our economy. It doesn't matter who they're leaving behind. So it's up to us to build on to the Facebook, the Ohio Organizing Collaborative, and let's really, really make a good point to gather more of these voices. And we're going to have to do what we have to do. If that means we rally at the State House, we rally at the State House. So I'll be writing a letter and personally calling these leaders of this council to say it's inexcusable that you're only taking written testimony. I've never even heard of such a thing. So anyway, I just want to make that point that we need to really gather up these unique stories around Ohio and what's happening to their families. But thank you everyone for being involved and we can do this. We can make this better. Absolutely. The proper role of government is to serve the people, and we work for you.
I just wanted to add on there also, like Kalia was sharing, if you can't, there is no shame in having to apply for unemployment. It is not an entitlement program. It is something to sustain you during tough times, especially during COVID. And so if you are having any issues, and again, I know people shared, I also got scammed where I owned a business and I had an employee, which was all me. And so, if you have instances where that is happening, there are groups here to help. But I really want to really extend that Senator Fedor and Lisa Sobecki, which are state reps, our state rep and our senator are here to help. Also, as Mayor Kapsakavich shared, you can call any of those numbers. There's groups that Kalia is a part of. You can call Family Policy Matters or ABLE. We're all here to help help you through that. It is not something to be embarrassed of. I know that we're only hearing from those people who are reaching out, but there's so many more that are in need. There's no need to be ashamed. We're here to help. Even if you have to call the union hall, I'll get you over to someone else that can help you. But we're all here to make sure what's number one, and is to make sure that people and their families are taken care of in the state of Ohio. Thank you.
Thank you, Erica. Those are, I think, wonderful words to end on. It's been a great conversation. Clearly, we have a lot of work ahead of us, but I think we're all committed to joining hands and doing right by the citizens of Toledo and Ohio who have been left behind by the governor and the majority down in Columbus. So thank you everyone for being a part of this, and let's get to work. Let's keep working.
Thank you all.